Times has many thousands of loyal readers across America. Subscribe now to the Nationalist Times.
A short time left with Governor Ventura, so I'm going to try to move quickly. Governor, final comment on 9/11. I want to play you a clip that came out and was in major newspapers last week. You may have missed it, where I'm sure you've heard about how all these major, quote, wartime correspondents or experts they have on Fox, CNN, MSNBC are really on the Pentagon payroll. They're all former generals, of course, and colonels, and that they're putting out unified propaganda. They've now released hundreds of hours of these tapes, and on the tape, they say, wouldn't another terror attack get the people behind the war? We have Republican memos saying the same thing. And Rumsfeld says, yeah, the cure for the people not wanting to, go into Iran and other places is another attack. Here's that 1-minute clip. I want to get your take on this.
This president's pretty much a victim of success. We haven't had an attack here in 5 years. The perception of threat is so low in the society today that it's not surprising that the behavior pattern reflects a low threat assessment. And the same thing is in Europe. There's a low threat perception. The correction for that, I suppose, is an attack. And when that happens, then everyone gets energized for another period. And it's a shame we don't have the maturity to recognize.
So the American people don't have the maturity to give up their liberty, so there's got to be another attack. The PNAC documents written by Dick Cheney in September of 2000 called for massive Pearl Harbor events to mobilize the empire. Zygmunt Brzezinski's book, Grand Chessboard, calls for giant terror attacks. Your take on that, sir?
Well, first of all, I got to apologize. There was a lot of static on there, and I had my ears are not any better than they used to be before. I had a hard time hearing it clearly.
Okay, well, let me just tell you what he says. He says, quote, the correction for the people not, wanting military action is another attack. And he said that's the cure for it, but barring having, another one of those, the people don't support the war.
And who said this?
Donald Rumsfeld.
Wow. Well, if this stuff's true, then my book is right on. We've got to have a revolution and take our country back.
Well, I agree. The book is on a bunch of the bestseller list. Why did you decide to write the book, Don't Start a Revolution Without Me?
Well, as a wake-up call, I actually, with 2 New York Times bestsellers, I got paid great front money and all that to do those books. This book I did with none. I wanted to do it down in Mexico with Dick Russell, and we got together every week and we'd work on it. And I wanted it to be more of a message and a wake-up call to try to wake up the United States of America that the two-party system is corrupt, and that the two-party system, that you have to change the system in which to change the government. And we've got to wake up to that fact, because if we don't, we could very much lose the republic, because that's what Thomas Jefferson warned about, that's what John Adams warned about, that political parties would eventually strangle the republic, because decisions would be made on behalf of the political party, not on behalf of the republic, and that's what we're getting today. An interesting case in point, and we'll tie it back to 9/11 a little. I find it very interesting that the Whitewater investigation, which, in the end all it did was turn up that the president cheated on his wife with an intern, they spent $100 million on that. For 9/11, they only spent $9 million. And I find that peculiar that, thousands of people were killed in one, and nobody died in the other one that I know of, or they couldn't prove. Maybe one person did, I guess. They talk about it, but they spent $100 million to investigate that.
What do you think of Barack Obama and Hillary wanting socialized health care, and Barack Obama is saying we need to have the government control how many calories we eat. I mean, if you think the nanny state's bad, with San Francisco saying you can't drink bottled water and most cities banning smoking cigarettes even outside, they're now not letting people smoke in their own houses in some cities. Cops are getting fired who get caught and reported by other officers for smoking cigars on their bass boat. I'm sure you've heard about those cases. What do you think of the nanny state that's being pushed by the Democrats?
Well, and that's just as bad. You know, I know that I come down hard on the Republicans probably a great deal more because they're in power right now. But the Democrats will be no better. In fact, they will be even worse because Democrats, they want no liberties for you at all, hardly. They want everything government controlled. I remember when I ran for governor, Hubert Skip Humphrey, no matter what subject came up during the race, he had a government program waiting to take care of it. And it was like I looked at him at one point and said, Skip, who pays for all this? You know, government laws and more laws. What people need to understand, Alex, is that every time a legislature passes a law, there's a money tag with that. It costs money to implement that law.
Well, what?
And as a chief executive of a state or country or whatever, you have to do it. You can't arbitrarily to yourself go, well, this is a stupid damn law, I won't implement it. You're not given that ability.
Absolutely. Folks, find out more about his new best-selling book. Been out for about a month. It's already a bestseller up on Infowars.com. We have links through to where you can get Jesse Ventura's Don't Start the Revolution Without Me. Governor, I'm not trying to press you because I know you haven't made the decision yet, but what are you leaning towards? I mean, I guess you're saying we're going to find out if you're going to run for the Minnesota seat for the U.S. Senate. We're going to find out if you're going to. We're going to find out in July, and right now
July is when filing takes place. And see, I won't just run to win. I'll run to set an example to turn around America, and that will be this. Whenever I run for office, I do not spend more money than what the office will pay me. I did it as governor. I only raised $300,000. I was paid $480,000. And you know why I do that? Because of what my dad said to me when I was a kid. When I was a little kid growing up, my dad was a World War II vet, 8th grade education. But he gets smarter every day. And he said to me one day, he said, you know, all politicians are crooks. And I said, Dad, come on, how can you say that? That's a blanket statement like that. And he said, easy. He said, because they spend $1 million for a job that pays $100,000 a year.
Absolutely. The evidence is right there. That's what one of my grandpas would always say.
And so I make it a point that when I run for office, I do not spend more money than what I will make. Now, as a U.S. Senator, I will make close to $950,000 through the course of that 6-year thing. So that means I could probably spend about $750,000 to get the job.
Now,
but I will not spend over that. And, you know, if I do it, I'll decide in July, because I believe these campaigns are far too long and far too expensive.
Well, we need you also during this national election cycle to be injecting sanity, and that will up your profile if you run for Senate. I think it's a no-brainer. I'm begging you to do it. We need you to do this, Governor.
The problem is, though, Alex, is then I have to do it.
Then you can't go surfing.
That's right. Then I can't go down the Baja and watch sunsets down there and take my surfboard out and fall down as I try to learn how to do it.
Absolute heaven down there. I certainly envy you down there.
No one watching over me.
No big brother telling you.
No big brothers down there. Do you know what I also do with all my new vehicles? I disconnect that OnStar.
Which tracks you, yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. That people think they can track you anywhere you go if you got that hooked up on your vehicle.
Governor, I want to run through a bunch of questions quickly now because we're almost out of time.
Sure.
Government drug dealing. They had a CIA aircraft right at 4 tons of pure cocaine, showing it came from the source. One of the CIA rendition flights, same plane, CIA owned, crashed in Yucatan Peninsula. Nothing on our press, all over the foreign press, with the CIA pilot, killed the people on board, filled with pure cocaine. Should we decriminalize drugs A and B? The experts I've had on here believe that over 85% of all narcotics is brought in and licensed by the government.
Well, I think absolutely we should decriminalize it because of the fact that when I was in Mexico, the Virginia Tech thing happened. And the headlines in Mexico said USA 33, Mexico 20. because that day there were 20 people killed in the war on drugs on the border. Only difference is theirs happens every day.
And now it's spread all the way up into Indiana, up into Dallas. Quote, military, our government trained, are now, quote, helping the Mexican drug cartels.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh, yeah, that was finally in the Houston Chronicle. Just a side issue. I know he's your buddy, and I know you've been in some films with him, like Running Man and Predator, and I know you're a loyal person, but Schwarzenegger, you talk about big government, gun control, on a lot of these issues. What do you think of the job Schwarzenegger's done as governor?
Well, remember this, Arnold is not a true Republican. Arnold is very liberal on the social issues, much like I am. I don't care about gay marriage. It's none of my business, things of that nature. And remember, Arnold's also a populist. He tried the hardline Republican position in California, and he got hammered. His popularity went down the toilet, so he made a turn. And now he's doing things that apparently the Californians are more popular with.
But what about gun control?
Arnold is not a dummy. Arnold knows where his bread gets buttered, depending on what he's doing.
Yeah, but you could do that, too. You could go with how the bread's buttered and probably be president. I mean, there is a difference here. You're not for gun control. You're not for drug criminalization. Arnold is.
Well, I don't think Arnold's for drug criminalization, is he? Because he's not bothering the pot shops out there for the medical stuff.
He lets the feds come in and go after him. He hasn't been trying to repeal these drug laws.
But the point is, he can't stop the feds anyway. Federal jurisdiction takes priority over state. Otherwise, if I was governor, I could stop our National Guard people from going to Iraq.
When's the last time you talked to Arnold? Has he read your book?
I have never talked to him since he took office.
Well, I know that he said that he modeled a lot of his campaign off the fact that he saw that you could win.
That may be true, but I haven't spoken to him at all. I stopped by one time when I was giving a speech in Sacramento, and he had already gone home, back to L.A., and so he wasn't in that day. I just left a note for him and gave him my best regards, and I haven't talked or heard from him since.
Jesse, talking about the police state, all over the country now, they don't just do breathalyzers. They're taking blood at checkpoints from Illinois to Texas, from Arizona to New York State. They're now having, quote, federalization drills where they get tens of thousands of police in 3-4 state areas to randomly search pedestrians now, not just cars, set up checkpoints. What's your take on that?
Well, if it's true, we're in tough shape. The only thing I can comment on is what goes on in my life, and I am concerned because when I crossed the border this year, inside the border was a second immigration checkpoint. Well, according to the Constitution of the United States, once I show at the border that I'm a U.S. citizen, I should not be required or be asked any type of identification as I travel throughout the continental United States.
And now they're building those deeper and deeper, over 100 miles in, and they're going after citizens.
Oh, yeah. Everybody, like the car in front of me, I saw the people showing passports, and they were from California. Well, for some reason, they waved me through, because I turned to my wife and I go, I'm going to see if the Constitution protects me. I will not show these people anything, even though they're immigration.
What happened?
I'm a U.S. citizen. If it's a state trooper, that's different. You're on a highway, then you show your driver's license. But as a U.S. citizen, I am not required to show anything.
What happened?
As I travel throughout the country. The Constitution guarantees me that.
Governor, what happened when you did that?
For some reason, they always wave me through. Every time they don't question or do anything, I get waved through. So I don't get a chance to really turn them down because they never ask me for anything. But it is racial profiling because I happen to have blue eyes. That might be part of the reason I'm waved through.
Unbelievable. Governor, we have a little bit of issue with the line. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay, good. We went to backup there. I'm in Texas, they're in Minnesota. This only happens when we got a huge guest on with us. Governor, in closing, with the 3 or 4 minutes we've got left, other points, other key issues that you want to impart, anything else on 9/11, anything else you want to talk about with the future of this republic?
Well, the main thing I want to talk about is the fact that we better wake up and we better pay attention and not to believe everything that the status quo tells you, because they're not necessarily talking the truth, and I'm finding that out more and more and more. And I personally have no trust in the government anymore because they've been so deceitful to me on everything, it seems. And that we've got to change. And I think the other thing I'd like to bring out is this. Having lived outside of the United States now for 3 years in a row for half the year, my belief is that you're not a world power by carrying a club and beating everyone up. And our status throughout the world has dropped dramatically now. The most popular T-shirt you see in Mexico amongst young people now is a photo of George Bush, and it says weapon of mass destruction. And I really don't think it should be part of as the United States, and it's time for us to change direction. So when Obama says about talking to our enemies, I see nothing wrong with that, because it should be the last option. War should never be the first option, is what we've made it today.
Well, you're right, Governor. Our name has been destroyed, and these so-called conservatives that still support the war, A, they're against the will of the people. Only 30% support the war still. And B, they have bankrupted us. The dollar's being devalued. Inflation is in double digits. The Federal Reserve's denying it, but oil just went to $1.30 a barrel today. $1.30 a barrel.
Did I tell you my take on oil?
No, sir.
I think this is what's happening on oil. I think they're driving the price up to battle the environmentalists. I think they want to get drilling in Alaska. They want to get offshore drilling. This is a ploy by the oil companies, in my opinion, to drive the price up to where the American people will say it's $5 a gallon. I don't care about the environment. Drill. I've got to have my gas.
Well, that's a part of it, I think, but largely the dollar has been devalued. Oil is dollar denominated, and so if the dollar's been devalued by more than half, oil's going to double.
Oh, yeah, on that end, too. Very good point. Very good point.
I noticed that in Minnesota, because we had some of our local guys that work at the network came out and shot some video of you talking, and you wouldn't address the press, but you would address them. Why were you not talking to the mainstream press?
Well, I talked to the mainstream press, except not the Minnesota mainstream press. I've made it my personal vendetta that I never speak to them again, because when I was in office, they attacked my children. And so the only way I can fight back is to not talk to them, not make them money. And so I speak to the open press in Boston, I speak to them in L.A., anywhere else, but I will not speak to the Minnesota media because it's my personal vendetta against them. And, you know, us Navy SEALs, we don't get even. That's our saying. And so my only way of getting even with them is to not speak to them. That's why I did speak to your people, but purposely I do not speak to them, and it is because they attack my kids. My son refuses to live in Minnesota now.
Governor Ventura, I want to say one more word to you during the break and then let you go. I really appreciate you spending time with us. The book is on the bestseller list. We need to make it even bigger. It is Don't Start the Revolution Without Me, Governor Jesse Ventura. We'll be right back. Terrors.
That's our saying. And so my only way of getting even with them is to not speak to them. That's why I did speak to your people, but purposely I do not speak to them. And it is because they attack my kids. My son refuses to live in Minnesota now.
Governor Ventura, I want to say one more word to you during the break and then let you go. I really appreciate you spending time with us. The book is on the bestseller list. We need to make it even bigger. It is Don't Start the Revolution Without Me, Governor Jesse Ventura. We'll be right back.
Terror Storm, a history of government-sponsored terror. Loose Change Final Cut. Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. The True Story of the Bilderberg Group. The Late Great USA. America, Freedom to Fascism. These are just a few of the hundreds of powerful documentary films and books available at truthnews.us and prisonplanet.com. When you visit prisonplanet.com, you can connect to our amazing online store. Whether you're looking for survival and wellness products like Berkey water filters, or you would like a book on the history of the Federal Reserve, we've got the most well-researched and documented titles, all available at prisonplanet.com. Or if you'd like, you can give the InfoWars store a call at 888-253-3139. Or you can view more than 1,000 titles in super high quality right now at prisonplanet.tv. Knowledge is power, and the information you need to effectively wake up your fellow man and fight the New World Order is available right now at truthnews.us and prisonplanet.tv. Join the InfoWar today.
Another untold story, here it comes. Another untold story, here it comes. Another untold story that you have not been told from anotheruntoldstory.com.
This story comes from some of the darkest, earliest hours of America's forgotten history. At a place called Valley Forge, where General George Washington and his army barely hung on. There were enemies without and enemies within, and Michael Whitman was an enemy within. He was, as one history book tells, caught and tried as a turncoat collaborator, giving invaluable assistance on numerous occasions to the British. He was found guilty of spying and sentenced to hanging. But on the eve of his execution, an old white-haired man named Peter Miller, who had done many favors for Washington's army, was allowed to see the general. And when he did, he requested a favor of the general: pardon the treacherous spy, Michael Whitman. The untold story in all of this is why. Why was the pardon requested? And why did General Washington do what he did that night? That's the untold story. And to learn of it, go to anotheruntoldstory.com. Anotheruntoldstory.com, and there you'll find it tied into a story that the greatest storyteller ever told, and you need to hear.
For another untold story, go to anotheruntoldstory.com. Anotheruntoldstory.com. Anotheruntoldstory.com.